well. They may not know what I look like, but they get my emails all the time. So I am the other advisor. So once you start in the program, most of the emails and most of the communication and advising comes from me, particularly for advanced practice students. So you will get to know me pretty well. I'm also the person that gets to graduate you. So treat me right and I will allow you to graduate. So I think Melanie, some of you are graduating this spring, and I think people have graduated prior semesters. There we go. So why don't we go ahead and have you introduce yourselves to the students and what program you're in, and maybe how far along you are in the program. Like, are you in clinicals? Are you graduating? So people get an idea of who's doing what. How does that sound? And Melanie, do you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah.
Since you're right there.
Sure. Hi, y'all. My name is Melanie McDonald, and I'm in the pediatric primary care NP track. I graduate in May, so super exciting. I am in clinical. I'm also in one class, and then I'm working on my comprehensive final right now. So pretty busy, but super excited.
Natalie, you want to go ahead and jump on?
Sure. Good morning. I'm Natalie Nicholas. I am a student in the Adult Gero Acute Care NP program. I graduate in May, and much like Melanie, also super busy time of year, doing an acute care rotation with cardiovascular surgery, working part-time, working on my master's comprehensive exam, and then also a second course. So thanks for having me on the panel this morning.
David, do you want to go ahead and go?
Sure. My name is David Ricky. I'm an alum of the Adult Gero Clinical Nurse Specialist Program. Graduated about a year and a half ago, I think. My current role is nurse manager of the neurosurgical ICU at University of Colorado Hospital.
Tommy, are you a participant? Are you a panelist too, or?
I am, yes. My name is Tommy Bolsega. I'm in the Master's Veteran Military Healthcare Program. I'm an active duty Navy nurse stationed in Virginia. I work in the ICU at Portsmouth Naval Medical Center. I am 2 semesters away from graduating. I'll graduate this December.
And Rafel, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, my name is Rafal Morawski. I am currently in the first semester of the DNP Health Systems Leadership Program. I completed my master's in Nursing Leadership and Health Systems Administration in December. I am currently between jobs. Probably will have a clinic management position shortly in a couple of weeks down in Florida.
Sheena, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sheena. I'm currently in the Adult Gero Primary Care Nurse Practitioner Program. It's the BSN to DNP. I'm in my 2nd year and started clinicals in January.
And Kim, do you want to go ahead too? I think you're probably the last one.
Yes, good morning. My name is Kim Kassab. I am a former alum of the 2018 cohort for the Clinical Nurse Specialist Program. I am the current Clinical Nurse Specialist for the Acute Care, Adult Gerontology, Trauma, Ortho, Rehab service lines down here at Memorial South in the Colorado Springs area. And I have completed a year of a DNP, but I am awaiting, hopefully, admission to a nursing PhD program at CU.
Do students have, the interviewees, prospective students, have any specific questions that you want to ask, or what kinds of things do you want to hear from the panelists?
Hi, I'll just hop in. My name is Heather. I just applied to the Pediatric Nurse Practitioner Program, hoping to start in August. This really is to any of you, though. I'm curious if any of you have young children yourselves and how you're managing. I'm only PRN and I only work one shift a week or less. And my oldest is 3.5 and is in preschool. My daughter will be in preschool age, like a year into the program. But I'm just curious to know if any of you with children have any advice.
I do not have kids, so anyone else? Well, I guess because a couple of my friends do have kids in the program. So I know, I don't know what your schedule is, but it's good that you're PRN. I guess I just plan accordingly because, you know, I'm in the pediatric program. So your first like year and a half is going to be online. So you're not doing any clinicals. So that's like more flexible. You just kind of have to work around some due dates. But I would say, you know, going into your second year when you start clinical, I would just say that's a conversation to have with your, you know, with your clinical director and things like that. Also, I don't know, just kind of seeing what your support systems are, you know, things like that. I know, I don't have a lot, sorry.
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
I don't have children either, but I'd say the majority of my cohort, they do, and a couple people have even delivered their first or their fourth child during the program, which is pretty remarkable. But I think the biggest piece of advice would be to have really open communication with your partner and your support system, that your program, like your master's or your doctorate or whatever you're pursuing, is going to require a significant amount of dedicated time on your behalf, and just to make sure that you protect that time. And I mean, life happens, and I'd say the faculty are all really supportive and understanding, but it's just really good to set that expectation, I think, with your family and your support system at the onset. And you know, just know that you'll have a whole nother you know, obligations that to accommodate.
Okay, thank you. Do you all feel like the first year of the program was a lot less busy, like before clinical started, or no, not necessarily? Okay.
I think it just depends on what you would define busy. So
Okay.
like, I feel like now I'm doing a lot more outside of class. Like I only have like one actual class, but I'm in 2 clinicals right now. So I'm constantly researching for things like that. You know, I'm charting. So doing more things like that, but it's probably the same in undergrad. Like your first, you know, year or two, it's more like your foundations. So again, it's like more flexible, but it's just a different kind of
Okay,
business.
that makes sense. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm done with my questions.
Hi, I'm Alyssa. I'm a candidate for the Women's Health Nurse Practitioner Program. Curious how helpful the writing lab has been for y'all. It's been a few years since I've done APA, so I'm nervous.
No, sorry, I'm talking a lot, I guess. So I have used the writing lab. It has been super helpful. I will also say it's like funny that this is my last semester. And I've also just used the librarians to help me with journal searching. Like I should have done that. I think that should be a requirement. It was just so wonderful. It just teaches you how to do that stuff. And I like the writing lab because if you send them your paper, I don't know, like maybe a week or two before, they'll kind of do like track changes and kind of help you and things like that. So yeah, I think they are super helpful.
And to add to that, the College of Nursing provides wonderful resources for the writing lab. So even if you don't have time to submit your paperwork to have evaluated, they offer so many resources for you to look through and read about that you really have a wealth of information in front of you when you need it at any time.
So this is Judy. I'm going to answer the question about it's actually, I think the official title is actually called the Writing Center. And that's between the downtown campus and Anschutz Medical Campus. What I think the students probably would tell you is it's super helpful that you can electronically send your paper to them. So one of the things you need to know is they are not editors. They are going, and they're also a teaching model. So if you have a tendency to use incorrect grammar, they will tell you once, and then they will expect you to figure out where you have made the mistake numerous times throughout the paper. They do not correct content. So if you make up stuff about, you know, some procedure, they are not going to know that. They're just looking at it from a perspective of writing. The other thing that that nobody has said here yet is there's also this wonderful software package called EndNote, ENDNOTE. And I see a couple faces like, what? Nobody told me this. EndNote is a software package which will allow you to enter the information for your references, and then it'll actually put it into APA format for you. There are also, like Rafael said, there are tons of classes that are offered through the library on EndNote and how to search and how to use spreadsheets and how to do research. So there are a lot of resources available, and almost all of this stuff is available online. You don't even have to be on campus to see it. And those who are interviewing, you need to know that we have not been on campus. I'm calling from my home, just like you guys are too. So yeah, it's a great resource. I wish more students would take advantage of it. It is free. There's no cost. And I agree. I think they do a really good job.
Cool. Thanks so much, you guys.
Hi, my name is Catherine. I also recently interviewed. Can you guys hear me okay? I have my, okay, great. I recently interviewed for the PNP primary care program, and just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on how you guys transitioned your work schedule. I'm currently working full-time, but just kind of curious at what point, if you guys did a part-time or PRN, and just kind of what timeline was helpful for you guys. Thanks.
I can take on this answer. So I would say I was able to stay full-time with my job for the first 3 semesters. And then I dropped to part-time, which was one of the hardest but best decisions I made for sure. The work-life balance was strained. I would say when you start clinicals, it's going to be a good idea to drop to part-time if you're able to, just because it's a whole different shift from, you know, just doing kind of the online basics. Depending on what your, you know, preceptor schedule is, you may be doing clinicals 2 days a week, which is really difficult to do on top of, you know, you're taking other classes and you're having, you know, assignments you're having to do for your clinicals. It's doable, but it's extremely difficult if you are full-time at your job. And I guess it depends on what you do as well. But yeah, I would recommend when you start clinicals, if you haven't before, to drop to part-time if you can.
I'm just going to add to that real quick. Where are you currently working, or what what field are you currently in?
Yeah, that's another great question. I just recently swapped to outpatient, so I'm hoping that we can transition to 410s, but it is I'm not working 312s and don't have the option to do night shift. So I'm doing pediatric primary care outpatient. We just do Monday through Friday. So that's one of the other reasons why I was asking.
That is perfect. I'm so glad you're doing primary care.
Oh, great. Thanks.
You're working, because I did PICU for 8 years. And I did night shift and it was super hard. So I'm now in a pediatric primary care office, and it's super flexible, but I will also say it helped me so much in my program because a lot of other people in my cohort are doing acute care, they work in acute care. So it just teaches you just little nuances, like how to advise parents on things. So yeah, I think that's wonderful that you are doing a primary care. But yeah, I dropped down to 30 hours a week. I do 3 10s and I'm still dying. So if I can, because I think like what Sheena said too, I'm doing 2 clinicals. One is 2 4-hour shifts a week, and then I'm in the ER like every other weekend. So it's a lot. So if you have the support, I would go down if you can.
The other thing I was going to this is Judy again. The other thing I was going to mention is remember that clinicals are going to be Monday through Friday. And if you're going to try and work 4 10s, that gives you a very limited opening for clinical placements. I guess, to be very honest, is they're going to offer you a day a week to do clinical. You can't respond by saying, well, I work that day, because we just don't have thousands of clinical placements. These people will tell you how difficult clinical placements are, and you are going to have to work around the clinical placement, not vice versa. So I really caution people who work 4 days a week or 5 days a week. You are not only going to be in clinical, but you're going to do class time. When are you going to get that done when you're literally working Monday through Friday, 4 days at work, 1 day at a clinical? That means you only have Saturday and Sunday to do classwork. That's a lot. And so be prepared and I totally agree. I'm not going to tell you not to work, but I am going to tell you that it's going to be really difficult. I have a student that graduated maybe 2 or 3 years ago who was in the acute care AGNP program, who refused to reduce her hours at work and was trying to do clinical. And literally, she told me she cried every single day because it was so overwhelming, and the amount of work and not having a life. So you really have to think about what your balance is going to be and how you can manage that time. It is, I think, one of the things, and maybe David, who's graduated, and Kim, who can say, once you graduated, you had all this extra spare time on your life, on your hands, didn't you? That you never knew you had. But while you're in school, there is no spare time.
Yeah, so I'd like to comment on that. I do precepting for the College of Nursing for the Clinical Nurse Specialist program, and I will say that individuals who don't think about their schedule, especially when it's work versus school, if you're canceling frequently or you're rescheduling frequently, it's my responsibility as a preceptor to set you up with tools and opportunities for you to really get some of that clinical knowledge under your belt. And it also can be a burden to the preceptor having to say, oh, dang it, that would have been a great opportunity, over again and again. So I will say, find that nice work-life balance. The part-time does give you an opportunity to free up more time, but it can be frustrating when the preceptor has, multiple opportunities lined up for you, and then you're not able to participate in them because you had to reschedule or something like that. So it's also really something to keep in mind when you're working through the program.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was helpful.
I'll just add one last thing. So I do work part-time. I work on an extremely busy I'm a geriatric acute care nurse currently, and our floor is like super busy. I leave at the end of the day like drained, like I have nothing left to give. But to supplement, because I know the program's expensive, it's expensive to live in Colorado for all of you that are. So I also have a PRN job. I'm a clinical research nurse, which is a lot more chill. There's more opportunities through the day to kind of, work on schoolwork sporadically. And so I'm able to do that every now and then just to kind of supplement income. So if you're able to do that, that's also an option.
I would say too, when I started the program, I simultaneously applied and accepted a leadership position on a cardiac progressive care unit. And so I was working full time 312s and night shift and doing leadership duties. And it was manageable for probably the first year and a half. And then I started to decrease kind of gradually to like a 0.8 FTE and then a 0.6 FTE, and then made the difficult decision, I'd say for the last year, my program, to step down from that leadership position. Because I think it's just, I came to a crossroads, and it's really important to think about how I needed to reprioritize and commit to being a provider and my future patients. And I gave up some great opportunities, projects and things like that. But you can always come back to those things once you're established as, as a provider or a CNS or whichever specialty you're going into. So I think it's kind of important to recognize that. And then I actually made an even more difficult decision to leave a unit that I was on for 5 years, and switch specialties. But now I'm PRN and in the PACU setting, and it's been a really great transition. And so yeah, if again, having that open communication with your partner and your support system, if you can plan ahead, stockpile some savings, reducing your your work commitments, will definitely benefit you in the long run.
So I just want to say one thing. My name is Liz McKelvey. I'm applying for the acute care certificate for peds. I did my primary care through CU a few years ago, and I worked full time, had 2 kids through school, and went to school full time. So if there are those of you out there worried about this, it is possible. It was exhausting, but it is possible to continue to do everything.
David, I was on a panel with you not too long ago where you were talking about your calendar system. Can you guys talk about how you use calendars and block off time and prepare? And it would be interesting to hear from people who went through indirect care programs how you blocked off time as well. I think people need to hear that you do have to prepare yourselves for the time management component.
Yeah, for myself, I ended up remaining full-time as I started the program as the assistant nurse manager. And then as I got deep in the program, I took the nurse manager position and kept working full-time. And just keeping the calendar and being as organized as possible. I'm kind of in the weird generation of like not fully grew up in digital, but grew up with paper, but can figure out digital. So I had binders with printout tabs. Every binder had a calendar on the top. And I mean, it was when things were due. That was the first time in my life where my work calendar and my life calendar merged, because there was really no separation. I think now a friend of mine's in the adult Gero NP program, and just watching her go through the same things where like the beginning of the semester literally looks overwhelming and scary. And you're just like, I'm never going to get all of this done. And it's like, okay, now for me, it was helpful by organizing my schedule, chunking things out into small obtainable pieces and having the due dates on them. And I would also have to block out my schedule that I posted on my door, so my staff knew when I was not available or when I would get back to them. So it was really important to be very organized. And that was just really successful for me. And intentionally planning hours that did not involve work or school. That was also very important.
I can add to that, kind of just talking about with answering Heather's question again, just trying to find time with your family and your, loved ones. Definitely with David, like I used to work night shift 3 days a week, and now I'm doing I just have a million calendars. Like there's one on my fridge, there's, a group calendar. If you look at my office at work, I have, my clinical calendar, like all the calendars. I feel like everyone needs to know your schedule. I really like Post-it notes. And kind of what David was saying too, like I block out time, but every day I have Post-it notes. Okay, like what do I need to do today? And you can definitely do personal things in school. It might be a little tricky, but I got married 2 years ago. So, I went out of the country for 10 days. You can do it. But yeah, again, just like planning all those things. I think my husband's biggest question is, what are you doing today? And it's like, look at the calendar. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll echo that, Melanie. I like live and breathe by my Google Calendar. But there's other apps like Microsoft Calendar or whatever system works for you. I mean, I honestly, David, like I tried a paper organizer because I loved that in my undergrad. And I like the feeling of writing stuff down and, marking a checkbox. I also love Post-it notes. My office looks insane because I have Post-it notes with like little clinical pearls everywhere. But having a digital calendar, I think, is super valuable and super convenient because I can share it with, with my significant other. And same thing, like Melanie said, if, they're like, what's your schedule like today? I just say, look at the calendar. Like I'm in clinical for 10 hours. Like I'm, MIA. So I think having a system, just finding a system that works for you, in the beginning and sticking with it. And, something that gives you the ability to like have your, like David was saying, your work, your school, your family, your social events, time for self-care, time for family, like having it all on there. It makes a huge difference.
What I found very helpful was buying one of those huge desk calendars where you can see the whole month at a glance, and then just planning your activities, whatever you need to do, around the due dates of your assignments. I found that to be very helpful, prioritizing the due dates first and then plugging in other things that I needed to do. So that worked out very well for me. But I think the important thing was just to have a huge overview and at a glance calendar that you can see every single day, what's happening. You may like it day by day, but I tried that initially for myself, didn't work for me because then I was missing something or I was running out of time for an assignment that I didn't see perhaps 2 days from the day that I was looking. So it's good to have, you can have both, but it's good to have the whole month overview in front of you. I found that very helpful.
Thank you, everyone. That was really, really helpful. I'm a very organized person, so I think that'll work to my benefit, but I think I will definitely need to do that.
Yeah, it kind of gets to the point where you have to micromanage like every hour of your day. It's like, okay, Sunday from 9 to 11, I'm going to work on this project and then take a break and then work on this project. Because Natalie, you're in your last semester too? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cause I know like you have clinical and then you have other just like random projects and then you have comp. Like this week I had 3 things due today. So it's like, okay, like what is the biggest priority? What is going to take the longest amount of time? So yeah, it's just a lot of thinking.
Being organized definitely helps.
And it looks intimidating in the beginning when you start your semester and you look at the syllabus and you're like, oh my gosh, all these things to do, where am I going to find the time? But if you plan things out, you'll find the time.
Yeah, and I've found, because I sometimes go, home exhausted and I just stare at my calendar and then it just creates more anxiety. And so I like Raphael's suggestion too. It's like, planning out ahead your whole semester, but then taking it a week at a time. And breaking it down and things that you need to plan long range and things that you can accomplish in the short term. But, just really, whatever kind of works for you to manage, that anxiety is like, but, just remember there's only 24 hours in a day. So keeping it in manageable chunks too helps.
Hey, sorry guys, another question. How about tech support? So my last program was an online program and there was always incompatibilities between my software and the testing software. Has anybody had any experience with tech?
For the most part, from my experiences being in the program, there really is no issues. I think that most of the issues that you're going to find are going to be connectivity issues, probably on your end. So make sure you have a fast internet speed, and so you don't encounter those problems. But even for things like resetting your password, the tech support team here at the college is extremely helpful and very quick. You're not spending a lot of time on hold. They're going to solve your problem pretty much fairly quickly, if not before you even hang up the phone. So personally, I have not encountered any issues with the tech aspect of it, and it is a huge factor in the program, but it's almost a non-factor based on how well everything is working out.
So this is Judy. I will say that Macs are an issue. Melanie is going, what? We have had consistent issues with Macs not working. Yes, I'm sorry. Macs do not work well. The conversion when you like upload your paper from a Mac to Canvas, it can totally reformat your paper. There are definitely difficulties. I think the key to working with Macs are getting the appropriate software. So getting Microsoft Office, not using Mac's suite. Those things are the kinds of things. So I can just tell you, I've had numerous faculty tell me that papers do come through that are not formatted correctly because the change from the Mac to Canvas, we're PC, everything is a PC. So keep that in mind. If you have difficulties, it may be because you're working with a Mac.
We did have some issues as doing group assignments using like a Google Doc. It was really hard to put in like a chart or some kind of, I don't remember what we were building, but we were building like some kind of graph to demonstrate, like to display our data. And then getting that out of Google Doc was awful and it didn't go very well. So that was one of our challenges. If you're going to have anything more than just a written paper in Google Doc, it got really complicated and it didn't come out of that very well.
Yeah, and one more thing to add to that is the Excel program, which you guys will need for your statistics course, is not so great on a Mac as well. There is a lot of, when you get the Microsoft version for the PC, there's a lot more options and a lot more things you can do statistically. So that will be your limitation as well. So you may want to consider having a PC for the Excel aspect of it.
I'll say I've functioned very well on my Mac, and it's from 2012. I did, I think through the university, I do have Microsoft Suite. So I sometimes I convert things to PDF if I want it to, if I don't want the formatting to change. But of course, for assignments, everything needs to be editable when you submit it through the online platform, which is called Canvas. But I've had zero issues with my Mac, and I have collaborated on a number of group assignments. And then I'd say from like other IT perspectives, the platform Canvas is super user friendly, and there's always tech support available either through chat or through a phone call. And I think like Raphael said, I've had instances where I've had to change my password, but only once that I didn't do it in time. So I got locked out, but it was super easy to resolve. And I think the communication from the the IT department, and within the College of Nursing regarding, technical aspects of the program. The communication is really well done. So, like, I'm by no means like a super tech savvy person, but I've felt very successful and supported with this majority online program.
Sorry, I'll say one more thing. This is the first online program I've ever done before, and I don't know how connected you want to be, but there is an app too. There is the Canvas app. So anytime your professor has an announcement or, a discussion post or a grade, like, you can get notifications. So, it's not, so it's pretty easy to be on the same page with everything.
I highly recommend the app. It was really helpful, particularly if you're doing assignments that have you have to post a comment and reply, and some of the professors really want that ongoing dialogue, and the app was so much easier to be able to continue that discussion versus waiting until 10 hours later when I would get done with work. I could do that during a break and just jump on the app, which was super smooth.
Yeah, and I'll say, if you don't want to be that connected, because I am already too addicted to my Outlook email, but you can also link it so you get notifications from Canvas to Outlook. So if I do see something that makes me think I need to log online, right now and check on that announcement in Canvas, then I'm alerted in that way without being bombarded.
Since this is an online program, can some of you talk about how you develop relationships with faculty or other students, and whether that's remote or in person?
A lot of the group assignments that I've had to do, we would do this like a Zoom format. COVID kind of messed up people getting together and meeting. So I think that Zoom or any other similar app is nice, just to see the faces, and typing, emailing, or texting back and forth when doing group assignments can get a bit tedious and overwhelming. So I just think that scheduling, Zoom meetings was extremely helpful.
There is some benefit to, having in-person meetings too, especially with your advisors, just so that you develop that relationship over time, and that you there's a connection that you can establish with that individual or individuals as well. I know I am actually very quiet and do not necessarily love working in group settings, but it is part of the responsibility within the program. So I think there is benefit to meeting in person, and I had more of a hybrid program. It sounds like it's a little bit more online because of the pandemic and maybe as a transition, but if you can meet with some people, especially those that are within your same program, it does make things a little bit better, and you have like a sounding bar to say, to bounce ideas off of and talk through some of the content.
Yeah, another thing about the group projects, is I've talked to Judy about this in the past, is I love how depending on what class, you'll do projects with people of different cohorts, which is pretty fun. So I've got to meet a lot of friends outside of my program. A really good friend of mine is in the FNP program, and I never would have met her without doing these group projects. And if you live out of state, I think the weekly or just Zoom check-ins are good. You also can do Google Docs, because we had people in different time zones. But yeah, pre-COVID we like to meet in person, but I felt really connected, and with my professors too. I feel like they've been super responsive, via Zoom if I had a question, or had some personal things going on, and I just felt like they were always super available.
Are there other questions, or are there other things that the panel feel like we missed that is important to know?
I actually have another question. This is Heather. Regarding the clinical location, so I'm going to be finding my own because I don't live in the Denver metro area. Um, and I'm going to be going into the pediatric nurse practitioner master's program. And I know exactly what I want to do when I graduate. Like I want to work, obviously, like in an outpatient pediatric clinic. Did you, I guess, Melanie, or I guess really anyone, kind of feel like it was still helpful to do like a variety of clinical locations, even if it wasn't going to be exactly what you felt? Yeah, okay. Like even if you're like, well, I don't want to do urgent care, but maybe it would still be helpful to go to one, even though you're sure that's not what you want to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Heather, I think that's really important to not limit yourself and to, this is an experience. This is an experience that, we work in certain areas, we might specialize in certain areas, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we limit ourselves and our knowledge and our practice. You might find, a clinical area that you had absolutely no interest in being in, and then you're in clinical and you're like, oh my gosh, maybe I found my niche, and get really excited about it, which, is an opportunity, right? So I definitely, the school does work with you depending on where you live, and placing you. And I know that, I was driving, from all the way up north in Loveland to all the way down here in the Springs. So, you can be pretty much anywhere. So, prepare for your driving, prepare for maybe even staying overnight. There were times too for clinicals that I would actually stay the night before in a place, just so I know I could make my clinical on time if there was inclement weather. I think there's a lot of benefit in doing clinical in multiple different places, and it only makes you more rich in your practice.
Yeah, speaking to the PNP program, I think it would, kind of be doing it a disservice, because all of the other specialties you do, they all relate to primary care in some facet. So I live in the Denver area, but a couple of our cohorts do live in the Springs, and it's really nice because you just have your regular like pediatric primary care rotations, but you also do a chronic illness rotation. So I'm currently in the Down syndrome clinic, and then you also do an urgent care rotation. And I think it just really builds on your skills, because in pediatric primary care, you are going to have chronic kids, and you are going to have kids with like a minor acute illness, and you can do suturing and things like that. So I think the ER kind of helps your critical thinking. So I think even though you might not want to be in those fields one day, just the knowledge will definitely help your primary care experience. Plus, like, you take those classes as well. So if you're in your chronic illness class and you're not seeing chronically ill kids, it might be harder.
I think it's important to think too, not to be intimidated by areas that you're not familiar in. I had some experiences where I'm like, I've never worked with this patient population ever. So I think there is a lot of benefit to, getting out there and really kind of looking at what do I already know and what can I learn more about that I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel very fortunate because I've had such a diverse range of experiences. Like cardiology is my first love, and right now I'm with a cardiovascular surgery group, which is amazing in the inpatient setting. But I've also like next week I'm doing inpatient palliative care, and I did some palliative care at the beginning of my rotation. And then like trauma acute care surgery, which I've never worked in an ER or a SICU or a surgery setting before. And so I think I think having those well-rounded experiences and speaking to that as you progress through the program, and then ultimately as you search and interview for your job, all just makes you a more desirable candidate.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You never want to turn down an option to experience different things. And I tell people, particularly with Natalie talking, I get people who say, well, I only want to work in the ED the rest of my life. That's all I ever want to do. Well, then when a job comes up in the ICU or someplace else that's interesting, you have no experience, you have no knowledge base, and they're not going to have an interest in you because you've never had that kind of experience. So I think trying and doing anything will just make you a better candidate for positions and give you a broader range of knowledge. It makes you a more well-rounded individual.
I'll also say my specialty director has given some really wise words of wisdom in that the community is small. So I think no matter what region of the country you're in, pool of providers, whether that's the physician, the surgeon, the APP, it is, I think, a smaller world than you think. So you never know who you're going to come across as a colleague or a collaborator or, your next employer who might have had experience in sort of like a niche specialty. And then maybe you did too. And so being able to speak to that and connect on that level, I think that you never know when that opportunity, you might come across that.
Yeah, don't ever close yourself off to the possibilities.
Are there other questions or other things that the panelists think that students really, 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 really need to know about?
I know we've talked about this before, but I would just really speak to the time commitment. I know when I was in y'all's shoes, I think it was Judy who said this. She's like, don't be in this program just because you're bored with bedside nursing. And, I thought that was like super funny. We're like, oh my gosh, oh, okay. But it's such a time commitment. I think financially, like my husband is kind of like carrying us right now. Like it's hard for me to do like housework and things like that. I just feel like I'm constantly studying or outside of the house. So it is a big commitment. Plus it can be, I don't want to say a burden, but your significant others or whoever you live with, like, are definitely feeling it as well. So just really keep that into consideration. Like I wouldn't take this lightly. I joke around. I'm like, I don't know who's more excited for me to graduate, like my manager, me, or my husband. Like, I don't really know. We're all ready. Yeah. Plus, like when it comes to like work, definitely you have to make school a priority. I know that's hard because you get paid, but it's at the point for me where I email my manager my clinical schedule, and it's like, okay, this is when I can work. So yeah, just really think about the investment and the time and things like that.
It's funny I was just thinking as you were talking, I had a student come in my office maybe a year and a half ago or 2 years ago who said, I didn't think it was going to be this hard. And I thought, well, first off, did you want it to be easy? And number two, if it was easy, I don't want you to be my nurse practitioner or my nurse. So be prepared that I think all of you agree, it's hard work. And you're going to be pushed to do a lot of work and learn new stuff. And it's not always going to be puppies and rainbows. So, that's one thing I always encourage people to realize, that this is hard. And yeah, you got a 4.0 in your BSN and, you are living the good life. Now this is different. And a higher expectation.
I think that's really important to think about, because you don't, like you said, you don't want your program to be easy. But I will say that the College of Nursing at CU, Anschutz, really prepared me for a great career opportunity as a clinical nurse specialist. And I will say, it's a whole different thought process. You are now more responsible. You are thinking at a level that is much different than a bedside nurse. So when you step out, when you graduate, it's a whole new ball game. It's so much different, and it's a different nursing professionalism that you need to rise to it, and you need to practice at that level. So it's the most amazing thing that you'll ever do when you're done and you're graduating and you're getting all that different experience out of your nursing program at that point. But I love what I do. I get to do something different every single day, maybe even 7 different types of things every single day. And it is so fulfilling. And I'm really excited for you guys, because I think you're really, it's going to be hard, and you're going to cry and you're going to say, I don't want to do this anymore. And your family's going to say, oh my gosh, we never see you. But you know what? At the end of it all, it is rewarding. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'll say I've talked to a couple of my coworkers who are also in graduate programs, various different specialties, and kind of reflecting, they're like, oh, like my program like really isn't that much different than my bachelor's. Like, I don't feel like I'm challenged or learning very much. Like, how do you feel about yours? And like my jaw just kind of drops and I'm like, really? Because like this is by far like one of the hardest things I've ever done. And to me, that raises a red flag. So it's like you just kind of have to like welcome the challenge and welcome that uncomfortable feeling of no longer being the expert at something. You're now the novice. And just being a sponge and being in that position to and have that willingness to learn from anyone and everyone and all the experiences that come your way.
I would also say one thing that I had to learn to do in the program was just give myself some grace. Knowing there were times where I'm like, I'm an awful manager, I'm an awful student, my dog hates me, my house is dirty, like my yard isn't cleaned up. Like there's a point where you just have to be like, it's okay if the dishes sit there for a couple of days, like you are writing a huge paper, and just giving yourself grace and permission to focus on your priority that you picked. And had to switch my mindset from look at everything I didn't get done today, because it won't all get done that day, and just say, look what I did today. And you'll end up seeing more things that you actually did and completed and successfully than the list that you don't perseverate on what you didn't get done. So give yourself grace, flip your mindset to what you did do, and keep moving forward. That's all I could say.
Yeah, my mantra is I'm doing my best every day. I'm doing my best.
Yeah, that's great advice, especially with the pandemic. Everybody has had to sort of reconfigure, I think, the way that they process experiences and emotions. And, it's this reality, this new reality, I think, is what we're going to have to contend with for some time. And so, yeah, as long as you're being honest with yourself and your support system and doing your best, and, give yourself and give others some grace to, you'll be successful.
So there's a question about certification. Did anybody use a certification exam company, or are you studying on your own, or the people who've graduated? How did you prepare for certification exams?
Certification exams for me, you start prepping pretty much the time that you graduate. The majority of individuals do start prepping. I would say know your content, but you can't know everything, right? And you'll run across questions that you're like, why would they ask me this question? I know from a CNS standpoint, I have a lot of questions on theory. And theory that we didn't necessarily study. There were online question banks that you can pay for testing, which I think is helpful because it's a different way, a different thought process of questions that differs from the NCLEX because again, you're thinking at a different higher level of nursing. So repetition for those types of questions I think is really helpful. There were no specific necessarily study books for the clinical nurse specialist, which is a little inhibited a little bit and was a little frustrating. But start prepping. Don't schedule a date for your certification and then keep the date. So that way you are still working towards the certification and you are studying that time frame.
Real quick, I would say see if you can find something with your certifying body. I go to the PCNB website because they do nurse practitioners and they have some really good test banks. Like I said, I graduate in May. I'm probably going to take my boards in like July probably or August. I'm also going to do Barkley. I don't know if they do other things, but I know for the pediatric specialty, they do like a 2-day online course. So I'm also going to do that.
So I can tell you as a graduate, don't start too early because you're still learning so much in your last semesters that you're gonna end up studying for no reason because you'll learn it. I'm peds, so NAP has a great course. I would highly recommend it to anybody that is peds. And they also have a good question bank. They also write a lot of the questions, so it's good to know what they write and how they write them. So look at your own, depending on what program, each individual program is gonna, or type of nurse practitioner is going to have a group. So like NAP is our peds group. I would look through them and there'll be good recommendations through that, but don't start too early. Speaking to picking a date, I also recommend not telling anyone when your date is.
Yep.
So that you just go, you take it, and then you aren't in your head thinking, oh, everybody's gonna know if I failed, yada, yada. Also, don't play too much into, I mean, it's been 8 years since I've taken it, but it shut off when it shut off. Mine shut off at 75 questions and it can go all the way up. So you just have to know when you're ready and it tells you immediately. So just be ready for that. But I recommend taking it sooner rather than later, and don't delay too much because you will start forgetting what they tell you in that last semester, which is super important.
Some of the certification exam information will be, I'm assuming all of you started getting this information probably from the APN roll course and then your clinicals. There are a variety of certification boards. So if you're in women's health or midwifery, they have their own certification board. PNP has their own. CNS, I think you guys have a couple different certification boards that you can go through. So it is, and absolutely right. You need to do it within at least 6 months of graduating. Like for women's health and midwifery, if you are 5 years out, you have to start over again and start a new degree because you can't sit for certification after so many years. And I can tell you horror stories that you don't want to hear about. Somebody who graduated in 1997 who is upset now that she can't 30 years later sit for certification. So take your exam right away. Do not wait, because if your classes change, if they change the requirements of your certification and you haven't sat for certification, you can't sit for certification. So take it within 6 months of graduating. That's when it's fresh. You can't practice without it, so that means you can't get a job. So do it as soon as possible. Are there any other questions, or are we ready to wrap this up? It's 11 o'clock, right on the money. So any last words of wisdom or any last questions?
Don't get scared off. It'll be okay.
They have me, right? I am here for you.
You and China and
yeah. Well, thank you, panelists, so much for taking your time today. I cannot express our gratitude. I appreciate all your words of wisdom and that you are still alive and working and doing all the things and going to school and have graduated and are doing great things. So thank you all. If anybody has any questions who was on this meeting, you can always send them to China or myself. This will be recorded, so if you want to watch it again, it will be out there, and I think China will be sending out a link to it. So thank you all. Have a great day. Those of you who are at work, have a great rest of your day at work. And the rest of us are just preparing for a blizzard on Friday.
Luck to everyone.
Thank you.